وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So inshallah ta'ala, tonight or this evening, I want to move forward in the book. And before we move forward, I just want to do two things very quickly. First of them is congratulating the brothers and the sisters who sacrificed their time, their effort, their energy, their money, their youth to come to sit, to learn, and to benefit. The brothers and the sisters who are local, and the brothers and the sisters who traveled from afar. Some of those brothers, alhamdulillah, I was fortunate enough to meet last night and to sit with and eat with last night. Brothers who came from Texas, brothers who came from Florida, brothers who came from Chicago, other cities and states as well. May Allah Azza wa Jalla put on your scale of good deeds, and may Allah also give you the hasanat. It's a forgotten sunnah, an abandoned sunnah, al-rihla fi talab al-hadith, traveling to seek knowledge in general, and traveling to seek hadith specifically. And there lies no doubt that was the shi'ar, the slogan, that was the banner of the people of hadith. The people of hadith is that they travel to seek knowledge, they travel to seek benefit. The first human being made, Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah taught him to travel and to move from one location to the next to seek knowledge. When Allah Azza wa Jalla informed Adam alayhi salatu wasalam of his progeny, his offspring, and that he told him what would take place and what would happen, and he instructed Adam alayhi salatu wasalam to, he says, اذهب إلى أولئك النفر من الملائكة جلوس. Those angels sitting over there, go to them, walk to them, and listen to the salutations that they give you. فإنها تحيتك وتحية ذريتك من بعدك أو كما قال. He says, for indeed, what the angels say to you will be your salutations, and the salutations of your children after you. This authentic hadith proves is that it is al-rihla fi talab al-fa'idah. It's traveling to seek a benefit. Also, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah told us how he traveled, how he left his home, and he was Kalim ar-Rahman, the one whom ar-Rahman spoke to directly, and Allah commanded him and ordered him to travel and to go to seek some fa'idah from someone who wasn't necessarily better than you, but had things that you didn't have. Al-Khadir alayhi salatu wasalam. And the companions of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, they traveled abundantly in search of one hadith, in search of one thought, in search of one ruling. And there's so many different examples of how the companions traveled, let alone the imams who came after them. We've done many lectures on this topic, the importance, the necessity, the way, the manner of traveling to seek knowledge and traveling to learn hadiths. You can find these lectures, inshallah ta'ala, specific individual lectures just on that topic. You can also find the discussion of rihla and the different explanations of Tajween al-Sunnah, how the Sunnah was compiled and conserved, in the different commentary on Sharh Ashab al-Hadith, and also Nasihatu Ahl al-Hadith of Khatib al-Baghdadi. All of them are on the channel if you want to learn more about traveling to seek knowledge and traveling to seek hadith. Khair, inshallah. Secondly, is we want to make a very brief, quick, simple review or revision of the most important things that we learned and discussed yesterday. So who's our first volunteer to give us a simple faida or a simple piece of information that we took and we learned yesterday? What were some of the things that we mentioned yesterday? Who reviewed? Fadal Akhi. The types of khabar, a hadith, athar, khabar, hadith. A report, how is that report given to you? Through a lot of narrators, through a moderate number of narrators, through a little bit of narrators, or just one narrator? Good. Ahsant. What else did we mention yesterday? Briefly. What else did we talk about yesterday? Fadl Akhi. When we have a large number of people, all saying the same thing, telling the same thing, then the general default rule, the generic rule, is that that thing is true. The information is certain, sure knowledge. And there is no need of investigating and looking into the narrators. And we said that's generic. That's generic. وَإِلَّا هُنَاكَ تَفْصِيلٌ. إِلَّا هُنَاكَ تَفْصِيلٌ قُلْنَا هَذَا. All right, طيب. What else did we mention yesterday? Why did the author write the book? Al-Yaqeen, Al-Ilm Al-Yaqini. طيب, we mentioned that yesterday. I said, what else did we talk about? Why did the author why did he explain, why did he write the book? I'm sorry? Az-Zarkashi. Ba'd al-Ikhwan. He says, one of my brothers, his student, his disciple, Hafid al-Zarkashi, asked him to write about Ilm al-Mustalah. All right? Jazakallah khairan. Why else did he write the book? We explained another reason too. Rajal indiraj fi tilka masalik. Hafid ibn Hajar wanted to mimic and he wanted to imitate and copy those great huffaz who came before him. And we said that this is one of the most important benefits of the book for us today. Okay? تشبهوا بالكرام وإن لم تكونوا مثلهم إن التشبه بالكرام فلاح. Copy. Take the example of noble men, even if you aren't noble. And imitating someone who's noble is a means of success. That's a fact. If you can't beat them, then what? You join them. That's a fact. All right? Copying and imitation is the greatest flattery. Try your best to be like those great ulama. And inshallah ta'ala, you'll get something from their legacy. All right, what else did we explain yesterday before we move forward? What else did we talk about? Fadl akhi. It's a metan. It is not an extensive work. It's not a long, drawn-out work of volume. It's a small manual. Learn it, practice it, master it, and then move forward. It's a stepping stone. That's all it is. Do not get stuck on one metan. Tayyib, what else did we talk about yesterday? That's it. Fadl akhi. Anything which isn't mutawatir is ahad. All right. خيرا إن شاء الله. طيب. All right, so let's move forward. من قارئنا اليوم؟ تفضل. ارفع صوتك. بسم الله.
والثاني الفرض النسبي ويقل إطلاق الفرض عليه.
لا. جاوز. قرأنا هذا. بالنقل العدل وخبر الأحادي بنقل الكلام عن الحديث الصحيح المقبول خبر الواحد المقبول. طيب اقرأ من الفرض النسبي لا بأس.
ويقل إطلاق الفرض عليه وخبر الآحاد بنقل
وخبر الأحادي بنقل عدل تام الضبط متصل السند غير معلل ولا شاذ هو الصحيح لذاته. All right. So now the author Hafid ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he's speaking on what makes a khabar, a hadith, of which we have to investigate, we have to look into. And before we move forward, all of us should know that a hadith consists of two main parts. There is sanad and then there is matan. Sanad and matan. Every Muslim should know this. A hadith consists of a sanad and a matan, or an isnad. Sanad, isnad, synonymous. Those are the two main parts. The hadith is not mutawatir. If it isn't reported by such a large number of narrators, it's ahad, according to the author. And if it is ahad, then it has to be investigated. And we have to look at who narrated it, what they said, what are their qualifications and characteristics. All right. So, from the ahad hadiths which are not mutawatir, for them to be genuine, authentic, sound, you have the ability to accept them, to take them. You have to believe in it. You have to practice it. the hadith must fulfill the following 5 conditions. The following 5 conditions. The hadith must fulfill these 5 conditions for it to be called genuine, sahih. And he mentioned sahih li dhatihi. It's individually sound. The first condition, and obviously we're rushing, it's very, very, very rushed, is that the narrator has to be a Muslim. Narrator has to be of age. Narrator has to be sane. Narrator has to be pious and righteous. Narrator has to be someone of the sunnah. And the narrator must have good, thorough behavior. These conditions exclude what or who? Quickly. Kafir. I can't hear you guys. Mubtadi'. Saghir. Liar. Majnoon, someone who's insane. Fasiq, sinner, open public sinner. What else? وهكذا. That is included in the word adlin, adala, religious equity. Religious equity. A person doesn't have to be perfect. I'm sure I'm not perfect. If I claim to be perfect, or if perfection was a condition, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today. The Muslim has to be righteous. Their good has to clearly outweigh their bad. Their sins and shortcomings are not to be known and seen and done in publicly without shyness, etc. Adela. A person must be of age. A child cannot narrate a hadith and a hadith being accepted. What is that age? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? Further discussion. Adela. What didn't we mention? What characteristics we didn't mention? The narrator has to be a male, right? No, we didn't mention sex. Narrator has to be a specific race, correct? We said this, didn't we? No race. وهكذا. Rich, poor, handsome, ugly, etc. None of those things matter in the hadith science. Everybody understand this? All right, Tayyib. He says, Adlin tamid dabti. And the narrator has to be accurate. The narrator has to be sharp mentally. The narrator has to be attentive. The narrator must have the ability to retain the information. This is what he said, that's what he said. Not this, not that, he said this. He has to be sharp. He can't be dull or dim-witted. Whether you memorize the information by heart, or whether you write it down properly and correctly and preserve your notes. There's a difference between the two. There are many people, I'm sure as I speak, people are writing things down that I didn't say, misquoting me, paraphrasing it incorrectly. And then they go home or they go on social media. Sheikh Fulan, he said that. I never said that. And I never claimed that. So everyone doesn't have the ability to take proper notes. Accurate notes, right? Some of you, I'm sure, writing down everything. Some just write it down pieces. وهكذا. Some of you may write it down accurately, you may get everything, but you go home, you leave your book, and your 2-year-old son scribbles in your book. Or you may live with someone who's a prankster, and they replace your book of hadith notes with a nursery rhyme, right? Play a prank on you. Or you may live with a non-Muslim family member, waliyadhu billah, who may hate Islam. You go home, your book is about the Prophet, what the Prophet said, and they put things in there that you didn't say. They play around with your information. So, dabt, precision, retention. The memory is of 2 types according to the people of hadith. Number 1 is memory by heart. The knowledge that you take into the bathroom. Hifd, qalb. And the second type of memory is accurate note-taking. Taking the notes accurately, preserving the notes, rewriting them. And of course, in our modern days, transcribing, uploading, clouding them is all a part of this now, because it's talking about technology now. I have access to your cloud, and I've replaced your files. And if the narrator sloppily goes to his notes, reads them, and he's unaware, then that's another issue in ilm al-hadith. So memory or preservation is of 2 types. Memory by heart and memory by pen. All right, and of course, memory by heart is going to be superior from one aspect, and preservation of memory by pen is superior from another aspect. And that's why many of the ulama would say, al-hifdhu khawan. Al-hifdhu khawan. Memory is treacherous. You think you got it, you say, write it down. قَيِّدُ الْعِلْمَ بِالْكِتَابِ. They would say, write it down. Because you got it down. I come back next year, next month, 5 years, 2 children later, another pandemic later, cancer, diabetes, stress, divorce, problems in life. And the next thing you know, you what? You've forgotten. So there's an advantage of memorizing something by heart, and there's an advantage of things being documented on paper. So the smart and successful student of hadith is going to do what? He's going to do both. I can read it from the book, or I can read it from my head. You choose. I would understand this. So that is the next condition of a hadith sahih. Condition number 3, muttasil as-sanad. The chain has to be continuous. Meaning, meaning D heard it from C heard it from B heard it from A. Is that the student met the teacher, heard from the teacher directly, from his or her mouth, directly. Or they saw it directly. They felt it directly. The senses. The person who reported the car accident, the fatal car accident, was on the corner. I was scared when I heard the tires screech and I heard the collision. I saw it myself. And then I passed it on when I called the ambulance. And then. So what's meant by muttasil as-sanad is that the chain of hadith, the isnad, the reporters, they have to be connected, continuously connected. Meaning, he heard from him, he passed it on to him, etc. Everyone understand this? And obviously this is rushed as well. And for the slow and detailed explanation, go to the recorded videos. After that, it says muttasil as-sanad غير معلل. The hadith cannot have a hidden blemish, a hidden defect. Something that seems good on the outside, but on the inside, something's wrong. Like a used car or a pre-owned car, more politically correct term. A pre-owned car. To the inexperienced driver, the teenager getting his first car looks squeaky clean, beautiful. But your father or your uncle says, don't go to the car lot without me. Let me go. Oh, I want to buy this one. It's beautiful, my first car. And your uncle holds your hand back, says, just wait a second. Instead of taking it back to the lot, let's drive another block. Let me look under the hood. That noise, that shaking, something is off that the naked eye or the inexperienced eye or ear cannot pick up on. And that's what's meant by mu'allal. As the hadith seems to be clean, seems to be authentic, but something's wrong. Something is incorrect with this hadith. And of course, that's a very, very long discussion for which we do not have the time. Last but not least, he says, wala shadh. A hadith cannot be shadh. It cannot have shududh. And a hadith which is shadh, simple, basic, brief terminology, easy understanding, is an authentic hadith which goes against another authentic hadith. It goes against a report which is more authentic. And there's no way for us to harmonize both. We can't combine both of them. One narrator says Sheikh Mufti was wearing a white thobe and a navy blue vest. Another narrator says Sheikh Mufti was wearing a white thobe with a black vest. We say that the one who reported navy blue was closer and you could see the color. And the one who reported a black vest was sitting a little further back and it was a dark color vest. La vest. We've harmonized between both narrations. They're both accurate narrators. That's not the same as the narrator who says, on Thursday, Sheikh Mufti was wearing a navy blue thobe during the class. And 5 other narrators, 10 other narrators, just going to say, no, he was wearing a white thobe. What are you talking about? He says, no, the thobe was navy blue. So, the one who reported that I'm wearing a navy blue thobe, he's not a liar, he's not a kadhab, he's not a fasiq, he's not a mubtadi', he's good, he's thiqah, he's a trustworthy person, he's an accurate student, he has a sound mind. But somehow, some way, somebody messed up. And it is impossible, mathematically, for us to ignore the report of 5 students for the report of 1, let alone 50. All of them said he was wearing a white thobe. And he says, no, the thobe was navy blue. Not the vest. Are you sure not the vest? Are you sure? The thobe was navy blue. We say somebody made a mistake. And that mistaken narrator, for argument's sake, has to be the one who's numerically inferior. And that's 1 versus 5 or 10 or 15. This is a simple example of hadith shadh. Hadith shadh. A faida for al-mutamayizin, okay, those who are a little advanced, you may have studied a book or two on this, is bil haqiqa, in reality, ash-shadhu naw'un min al-illa, dakhilun fi al-ilm. Shadh in reality and illa shart wahid. So there's only 4 conditions for a sahih hadith. The hadith cannot have a hidden defect, and you won't know that a hadith is shadh until after you've investigated, looked, you've combined, and that is the same process for al-muttarib, for al-maqlub, for al-mudraj, etc. طيب. So, in brief, quickly, the author here mentioned 5 conditions for a sound hadith. Condition number 1 is what? Quickly. They must possess what? Adela. In English is? That's what I said. Religious equity. Religious equity, which includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 2. No, age is not a condition. Age is included in Adela, religious equity. Number 2. Dabt. They must have dabt. In English, dabt is precision. The mind's got to be sharp. Condition number 3. Muttasil as-sanad. In English, that's what? Continuous chain. The chain cannot be broken. Obviously, it's not a chain, but it's a group of men or women in which is a teacher-student relationship. I come to you, you tell me something, and I pass it on to someone, and that becomes a chain. The chain can't be broken. Can't have a link that's weak. Everyone heard from the next one until they passed it on. Condition number 4. It cannot have what? In other words, these 5 conditions the Hafiz ibn Hajar mentioned, ثلاثة منها شروط إيجابية واثنان منها شروط انتفائية. 3 of the conditions are conditions that must be there, and the remaining conditions are conditions which cannot be. Understand the difference? 3 conditions have to be. It has to, it has to, it has to. And the remaining 2 conditions are not conditions that it has to, but conditions that it cannot be. You guys understand? The hadith cannot be shadh, and the hadith cannot have an illah. So 5 conditions for a hadith to be called sahih. Sahih lidhatihi. 5 conditions for khabar ahad to be maqbool, accepted. Now, khabar al-ahad or khabar al-wahid, what does it prove? Does it give you yaqeen or is it done? We'll get there. What's important is, as a beginning student of knowledge, as a layman 9 to 5 Muslim, this is the most important thing to study. And the first thing to study is what makes a hadith sahih. What makes a hadith sound? Everyone understand this? What goes into a hadith being sound? And obviously, your Islam, your deen, is based off of a hadith being sound. That's everything. Islam is the hadith of the Prophet, the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, tayyib, iqra. We don't have a lot of time. وتتفاوت رتبه بتفاوت هذه الأوصاف. He says is that there are levels of hadith sahih. There's some hadiths which are more authentic than others. Why are they more authentic than others? Because one scholar said so, because it sounds better to you, because it's a simpler story. What makes one hadith superior over another? بِتَفَاوُتِ هَذِهِ الْأَوْصَافِ. Because of these 5 conditions. The hadith that fulfills these 5 conditions thoroughly, with no difference of opinion, no discrepancy. Everyone agreed on all 5 narrators having adala. All 5 narrators having strong memory. All 5 narrators sitting with their teachers for years, learning with them, etc., etc., etc. Is going to be more authentic than a hadith over which there is difference. Some say the narrator is strong, others say the narrator is, understand? Some scholars say he clearly heard from him, And others may say, no, he didn't hear from him. He only found his notes. So the author, read what it says in English. Who has the English? Who has the book?
It differs in its grade by however much it differs from these characteristics.
These 5 conditions. How strong the 5 conditions are, how well planted those 5 conditions are, determines why some Sahih Hadiths are stronger than others. Everyone understand this? That's what's meant by that part of the book. Tayyib, Faddal. Next line. ومن ثم قدم صحيح البخاري ثم مسلم ثم شرطهما. He says, listen carefully, and this is the reason why Sahih Bukhari is the most authentic book of hadith. This is the reason why Sahih Bukhari is so special and so unique, because he is extremely meticulous in fulfilling these 5 conditions for every hadith that he collects in his book as a starting point, as beginners, as a default rule. All right? Everyone understand this? What makes Sahih Bukhari more authentic than Sahih Muslim as a whole? What makes Sahih Bukhari more authentic than Al-Muwatta as a whole? What makes Sahih Bukhari more authentic than Sunan Abi Dawud as a whole? Imam al-Bukhari's adherence to these 5 conditions. Everyone understand this? If we made an example with, let's say, مثلا, automobiles. Automobiles have standards, no matter what the automobile company may be. Kia, Ford, Subaru, Saturn, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Chevrolet. No matter what the company is, every automobile has a basic standard. We have a coupe, we have a sedan, we have an SUV, correct? We have a luxury vehicle, etc. Every car has to have tires, has to have seats, has to have doors, have to have ignition, etc., etc., etc. Correct or incorrect? So let's say, for example, we take a Bentley, all right? We take a Bentley, and then we take a Hyundai, right? Are they both automobiles or not? They're both cars. They both will start up and get you from one point to another, correct or incorrect? But what makes a car a car? The conditions of it being an automobile, according to Bentley, is not the same according to what? A Hyundai. Huge difference. The tires are both made from rubber and steel, correct or incorrect? But the rubber used by Bentley is not going to be the rubber used by Hyundai. Everyone understand this? The rims, it's the difference. The leather, the upholstery is going to be night and day. The engine, the system, even though it's one engine, ignition, accelerator, according to Bentley and Hyundai, are going to be like what? Night and day. So Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala was extremely rigid in making sure that these 5 conditions were fulfilled for all of his hadiths at the utmost, grade A. Bentley, when it selects its leather for its upholstery, is going to pick the finest, softest, most quality leather. Hyundai, on the other hand, it may give you, because it's economy. Everyone understand this or not? You guys, you with me? Then after Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah comes Imam Muslim in general. Imam Muslim's book, totally authentic in general, as beginners. And his book is extremely sound, but it isn't as luxurious as Imam al-Bukhari, in brief. Everyone understand this? And of course, they're like a Lexus method. A Lexus is a luxury car, but it's not like a Bentley. Everyone understand this? وهكذا. Then after Sahih Muslim, the author says, ثُمَّ شَرْطُهُمَا. And then the conditions of al-Bukhari and Muslim. Meaning, hadith that is not in Sahih Bukhari, that is not in Sahih Muslim, but that hadith has the same narrators, the same exact way that it would normally be in Bukhari, is outside of Bukhari. And that's what's meant by على شرطهما. هذا حديث صحيح على شرطهما. ولم يخرجا. يعني مستدرك الحاكم for the advanced students. صححه الحاكم ووافقه الذهبي. هذا حديث صحيح على شرط الشيخين. All right, طيب, move forward. فإن خف الضبط فالحسن لذاته. Now he talks about a new type of hadith. A new type of khabar ahad, khabar wahid, and that is al-hadith al-hasan. Al-hadith al-hasan. Al-hadith al-hasan, in brief, simple terms, is nothing different from the hadith sahih, with exceptions to one thing. And that is, its narrators are not from the top tier, top shelf as the sahih narrators are. Even though the narrators are good, they're strong, but they're not necessarily the finest of the fine. You understand this? They're not the finest of the fine. So for example, Mercedes-Benz, their leather upholstery is luxury, but it's not the same as the Bentley, مثلا, or Ferrari, or whatever the case is. It's not the same, even though it's up there. It's high up there, but it isn't the same. So Hadith Hasan has how many conditions for it to be acceptable, for it to be called Hasan? How many conditions are there? 5. What are they? Adela. Tamam al-Dabt? La. إنما هو ضبط. One of the narrators may not be tam al-Dabt, the sharpest, but he's sharp. He's not dull, right? Then Hadith Hasan, his chain of narration has to be muttasil. It can't be munqati', it can't have a breakage. After that, Hadith Hasan can be shadh. Because it's Hadith Hasan, it's okay for it to be shadh, right? Ya akhi. Hadith Hasan, we're not talking about Hadith Sahih anymore. Somebody else. Hadith Hasan can have shudud in it, right? Abadan. Just like Hadith Sahih. Everyone understand this? Last but not least, Hadith Hasan cannot have illa, غير mu'allal. Hadith Hasan is similar to Hadith Sahih with regards to only, with exceptions to تمام الضبط. وإلا لابد أن يكون هناك ضبط. Alright, طيب, فضل. وبكثرة طرقه يصححه. In other words, we have 3 chains, 3 isnads. All 3 of those isnads are Hasan. 4 isnads, all of them are Hasan. The author says, when we take 3 Hasan isnads and we put them together, the hadith now graduates, it's bumped up, it's leveled up to becoming Sahih. لذاته لا وإنما لغيره. فهمنا هذا. Alright, طيب, moving forward. فإن جمع فللتردد في النقل حيث التفرد وإلا فباعتبار إسنادين. He says, so if a hadith scholar comes along and uses both terms, then it means one of 2 things. Who is Imam Hafiz ibn Hajar talking about here primarily? Who's an advanced student? فَإِن جُمِعَ. If the word Hasan Sahih, both of these words are mentioned, who? Ahsant, barakallahu fiqh. Imam al-Tirmidhi, Ahsant. Imam al-Tirmidhi is Ashhar. He's from the most famous of those who have mentioned this double terminology. And there are others who have mentioned it as well. هذا حديث حسن صحيح. هذا حديث حسن صحيح. Right? How can a hadith be Hasan and Sahih at the same time? We've run out of time. Inshallah ta'ala, hopefully we'll mention this in the next class. Once again, brothers and sisters, please excuse me for rushing. Please excuse me for not being as thorough and basic. It's not a lot of time. You can go back to the full explanation, inshallah ta'ala. With the remaining minutes that we have, are there any questions? Please. The conditions for Adela. Who can give them? Quickly. Number 1. Adela. Age is not a condition. Age is not a condition. Age is included in Adela. Pay attention to decompressing the thing. Age is not the shart. From the conditions of Adela is age. Age itself isn't the condition. Adala. What's meant by Adala? If you were my student, I'm giving you an exam. I say, what is the translation of the word Adala? What does the word Adela include? It includes religious practice, being of age, sound mind, kada, 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 kada. Age is not a condition of a Sahih Hadith. Huh? طيب, Adala, number one. Number two, your question was about Adala or Hadith Sahih? Adala, all right. طيب, age. What's meant by age is what? When they narrated, not when they saw it and heard it. If a child was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, and they accurately saw or heard something, they can pass it on after they've reached puberty. It's a difference. After age is what? Quickly. Islam. What else? Piety, righteousness. They have to be sane. They have to have good behavior, etc. Right, next question. Any other questions? Fadl akhi. Clear. It's a yes and a no answer with regards to tawatur. Was tawatur known by the early scholars of hadith? Yes and no, or no and yes? The no part is no. They didn't have that aziz, mashhur, tawatur, 3, 12, ilm yaqini, ilm dhanni, bil qara'in, la. ما عندهم هذا. As far as the concept of خبر العامة, استفاضت الأخبار عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أفطر الحاجم والمحجوم, Ibn Khuzaymah, Imam Ahmad, etc. That's just common sense. So many different reports, so many different akhbar being mentioned about something. That's known to the early ulama of hadith. If that's what you mean by tawatur or shuhra, taban, of course. As far as these specific meticulous details, yaqini, dhanni, this, that, so on and so forth, these numbers, things that don't match up, that cannot be accurately traced back, then that is foreign to the ulama of hadith. And that is from the ulama of usul and kalam and other genres. By the time Hafiz bin Hajar rahimahullah came along, those genres had a strong handhold on the Islamic sciences. That's what we say. That's what we say with regards to that. And anyone who wants a greater explanation of this, they can go back to the other recordings. I think that's all of the time. Sheikh Ahmed is here, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.